Newsflash, not fake news.
Say something about it, Pete. What do you think?
It was great.
All right, good. Moving on.
Are you okay? My soul. Devil's in the system, guys.
We need to stop and pray. Good evening and welcome to The Brook on Canaan Radio. It's good to be back in the studio again. I'm Will, and in the studio with me today is Brother David.
Good evening, everybody.
Pastor Reeves. Brother Peter.
Hello.
Mrs. Reeves.
Hello.
Jewel.
Hello.
Hope.
Hi.
Christy. And JT up in the booth. It's good to be back together once again for another episode here, and we love to hear from our listeners during the show. We want to hear from you. A great way to be in touch with us throughout the show is by requesting a song. You can request a song from our vast Canaan Radio library. So send us a text with your song request, 920-940-8275. You can post a tweet using our Twitter handle at Canaan_radio, or send us a DM on Instagram at Canaan_radio. We'll give you a shout out and do our best to play that song. We only have 3 song segments this season, but we'll do our best to play those songs as they are requested. And that same phone number is the number that's used at the end of the show when we do the third degree. So you give you a chance to ask us some difficult questions. With that, let's get right into saying hello to everybody. Anybody got anything to add? I made a couple adjustments on the audio to try and get rid of any background noises.
Sounds good to me.
Wow.
Impressive.
It's good to have you guys back.
It's good to be back. Good to be back.
Tell about your travels.
I've been everywhere,
man.
There's a PA system working in Pennsylvania.
Yay!
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yes.
Right now.
Right.
Yeah.
For now. Yeah, it was good. That was fun to install. It was a lot of work. Brother David and Pastor were big helps. Pastor did a lot of soldering.
Isn't that his favorite? I remember him doing that
No, it's not like
It's not his favorite.
growing up.
No.
It's not his favorite, but it was something that needed done, and I was doing some other things, and so it was a busy couple of days.
Was. Thankfully, you could actually crawl. Yeah, there's actually space to crawl underneath the platform to either side. So I say space. I mean, it was still pretty tight, but worked out. Can't complain, except I did.
Yeah, I did. It was interesting because I've never seen the people who built that made sure that there were spaces in different places to get to stuff. So underneath the platform, there was pretty much all open. Like you could crawl all the way under there, which was interesting. So,
yeah. It reminds you of how old you are when you have to do that, or out of shape. I don't know which one it is.
Wow. Old.
Crawling up in the attic, bending down, crawling around. You're like,
small little holes you got to fit in, and it's just
this is for the young guys.
Yeah,
Why am I
right.
doing this?
Now it makes me appreciate what we have here. So that's for sure. All those.
Yes. It worked out though. It was good. Got it all done, put together. Got to be there on Wednesday night for their first service with it, and it was a big change from what they had before. It was a lot quieter before, so I think they weren't used to that. It was like
They all had to wake up.
It was quiet for what we're used to. So like
They said it was loud.
they said it was very loud, and I'm like, wow, that feels really quiet to me, but it was good. They liked it, so hey,
That's all that matters.
right?
Then we get to go over and see Sean graduate from college.
Yep.
Good.
That was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
He actually was the one to give the
Student charge.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He did a great job preaching his sister's message.
It's pretty good.
Oh, I
No,
thought
he
maybe
did
Angie
good.
wrote it.
No, he did really good. Got done. I was like, who was that kid? You signed my Bible?
Yeah.
It was just interesting to hear him not make a joke or crack up for like 5 minutes straight.
That's
Did it
true.
make a joke?
No, he just stuck to what he was.
Stuck to his notes.
Wow.
Yeah, he did. He did it. It was good.
Good job. Y'all had a little bit of influence there.
Yeah, it's basically me.
Yeah, whatever.
Well,
Yeah,
Pastor
okay.
led him to the Lord.
That's right.
So
It was neat. We went out to eat before the graduation, and they brought that up. Brother and Mrs. Tyson and Sean brought just how effective and important that was, part of his life, being
Yeah.
able to come out to the camp and pastor talking to him and leading to the Lord and things like that during that time. So it's encouraging.
He texted me today, said thanks for, I'm not sure if he probably texted you guys, but said thanks for coming out. He appreciated that. So that was the trip. And it's good to be home.
You flew into Denver very late last night.
Oh yeah. Our second
Nobody's
flight
gonna
was
mention
delayed.
how stuffy it was when we walked in.
Stuffy it was where?
When we walked into the graduation. This is not working for me.
Can't see her.
We're dodging.
She's already short as it is. So
dodging. What are these handles?
the arms. Mm-hmm.
Something.
Yeah, I can't see them, and I can't see her. So it's like,
You can shrink.
I'm shrinking, or
Shrink.
I'm trying to go like this. And,
Well,
well,
it's a lot of
We could
people
give
around
Mom
this
a couple
table.
books. So,
Yeah, give me a
'cause I
few
could see
telephone
Peter.
books to sit on. Oh wait, we don't have telephone books anymore.
Wow. A few dictionaries.
A few dictionaries.
Actually,
Do we have those?
Encyclopedia Britannica.
And encyclopedias.
Our second flight got delayed. So
lot.
we had a connecting flight in Tennessee. So we left from Baltimore, flew to Tennessee, which is about an hour. And that one was supposed to take off in like
Left from
45
Philly.
minutes.
Yeah.
Baltimore.
Yeah. Sorry.
Where did we leave from?
No, we left. From,
BWI.
no, we didn't.
No. I don't know where we were.
PHI.
Yes. Left from
Philadelphia.
Philly.
Philadelphia.
Point is, we left, flew to Tennessee, and then they delayed that flight about an hour and a half or so.
Well, as we got closer to the
They
first
kept-
flight,
yeah.
it got delayed once to like 10:20, and then we got a notification again right as we got on the plane, delayed till 11, and then when we landed, it was like 11:20. So when we finally landed in Denver, it was like 1 in the morning. It was like 1.
Yep.
It was a long day.
Wow.
But you made it back.
Mm-hmm. Here we are.
And we all managed to get all the visiting done, most of it.
How did that go?
Courtney said she had a few more visits that the addresses were wrong on her because David knows where to go.
I never paid attention to the addresses.
I said, that sounds right.
We already discussed that.
Oh, I apologize for bringing it up again.
I didn't know if you knew.
so how'd it go this week while we were away?
It went peachy. Got a lot of odds and ends accomplished. So, I mean, sprinkler systems. Ooh, that was one of the main items.
I was wondering
You got
if you
them done?
had gotten that.
Well, I got them operational. There's still some fine tuning he'll probably need to do. Like the sprinkler head over there, I have no idea how to adjust those. And I didn't have time to try and figure
Did you
it out.
fix it?
I just replaced it,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
I think it's the wrong spray nozzle on it or something. And something. The system is working. It's spraying too far in a direct stream. All the rest of them are like a fan.
Where did you buy it?
Yeah. It's a Rainbird, same brand. I thought I got the same exact type on it, but it was the wrong one, I guess. Because I
Probably
didn't
just
know the
needs
difference.
adjusted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like I said, I didn't really know what.
So we're watering the neighbor's lawn.
no, just
Street.
no, I made sure that it wasn't doing that, but everything was up and operational.
You got the high-powered one for
I
security.
should put it this way. The only one system I didn't have any trouble with was daycare 2.
Yeah, he just turned them on when I was trying to take
Yes,
preschool
that's a whole
graduation
nother-
pictures.
Oh, no.
We were outside, got them all soaked. No.
I thought you said you didn't have any
No.
problems.
No, we went to go out there to take them, and the sprinklers were going.
Oh, no.
And I didn't realize when I'd gone over there. I saw her getting the
Did you
kids
get
ready.
the kids wet? Did they
Right at the end, we took one where they laid in the grass, so they got a little wet, but they loved it.
She turned the
Preschoolers.
system off when they were out.
Just cutting out on you?
No, it's the gate on her mic. She's just not loud enough.
Be louder, Kristen.
Her? Not
I've
loud
heard
enough?
it.
Yep.
I've heard it a few times. Cut out.
I mean, I can be louder, but
You might have to adjust a little bit.
I need to adjust it a tad. Because that silence is really deafening, isn't it?
a little bit.
It's like I got all the background noise
it's
removed.
Like,
We need
it's like
all
a
the back-
limiter, basically, to where if they don't talk to a certain level, it cuts it
yeah,
off.
it's
Cuts
a gate.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a reverse limiter. So
And tomorrow is International Sunday.
Oh, very good.
I
Very
was
good.
just about to do that, but yeah.
Fly lice. They're having fly lice.
Lied.
It was hard to find all the lice we needed,
Lied?
but yes.
Lied. It cut
Lied.
out when I was just
Lied.
speaking. So it wasn't just hers.
Oh, we have multiple cutting out.
Yeah, it's once again, you just got to be a little louder.
It's the high pitched voices.
I'll talk.
Is this the
really low.
change that we made?
That's what we were talking about, the
I
heart
made,
limiter
yeah.
just a couple seconds ago.
Yeah, at gate.
Reverse heart limiter.
Reverse limit. Yeah.
See, they start talking like that, and I just hear the Charlie Brown teacher in the background.
Wow.
Everybody's looking at their.
Brother Jeff wanted to know who preached Wednesday.
Oh, I did.
Was Brother Peter.
Yeah.
He did a really good job.
It was a really good
Preached on Jonah.
And Hope didn't throw up during it.
She felt like it. But
I thought I didn't, though. That was good.
Wait, what?
Hope
So
has
there's
an
a
issue
stomach-
with Jonah's sermons.
There's
It
a-
always makes her throw up.
No, there was
She
a
could
stomach
stomach
bug
it, I
going
guess.
around at daycare,
Oh.
and I had a very mild case of it. But I was cracking up because I feel like every time somebody preaches on Jonah, I have an upset stomach.
So you're going on a radio show tomorrow.
Yes, tomorrow at 7 Central.
Monday.
Monday?
Monday.
Or tomorrow?
No, that's not tomorrow. It's
I mean,
Monday.
Monday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we're on the same page.
Yes.
Yes, Monday with Mrs. McMurtry. I didn't see if
Gently led sisters or something like that.
yes, yep. So she asked me a while ago
And
if I
what's your
would
topic?
consider it. I gotta remember how she worded it. Finding contentment while being single or something like that. So
Have you found it yet?
She's asking
don't
Christy
know.
for it.
It's a continual thing.
I would say for the most part, yes, but yeah, it's something you work at. But if you want to hear anything else, you have to join the live broadcast on Monday.
Ah, I'll have some guys joining.
I don't think so.
I don't need no stinking man.
I got her outline and I meant to tell her how much I appreciated her not asking me. Nowhere on there is the question, why do you think you're still single? And so I really appreciate that. It's like the worst question whenever
Why do
you're
you think you're
talking
so-
about it.
What question?
Why do you think you're still single?
So why do you think you're still single?
there's no answer to that. I have no idea.
Men are
But
stupid.
I appreciate
That's what
it.
you wanna
I
say.
appreciate it because I think a lot of single girls get tired of hearing that question. It's essentially saying what's wrong with you, and you're just trust me, a girl doesn't need to be asked that. They already think there's 1,000 things wrong with them.
Many, many things.
Yes. So,
Speaking of the mic.
Yes.
well, mine kind of does the same thing a little bit. Feels like. Of course, it could just be where I'm sitting. I'm sitting in a different spot than I normally sit. So.
It was a great adjustment because, we never had that problem before. So now we're got to spoke already to the microphone.
Now you don't have to hear
You don't
the
want
wanna
to
be
be
heard.
missed. You
Make
gotta
sure
be
you
right
Want to be
in
heard?
there.
You better be heard.
And I'm glad to have this ring around here. It's like a snot rag.
That's what it's for.
Yeesh.
Well, amen. Let's go to a song.
Let's do it. Last week's episode is available as a podcast and on our website and on YouTube and anywhere podcasts can be listened to. Remember, you can request a song during the show by texting us 920-940-8275 and on Twitter using our handle at Canaan_radio. The same on Instagram. We're going to go to I'm Anchored in the Blessed Rock of Ages, Golden State Baptist College. We'll be back in just a minute.
Well, we get to start episode 7 of Growing Up IFB entitled Family Finances. And in this edition, we're going to be talking about how Mrs. Reeves and I some of the philosophies we had about family finances, where we started, where we got to, and how we got there, and what we taught our kids. And, of course, having people in the room that aren't our children, are beneficial because they either will confirm or deny. No, they will add to it. Christy Smith is with us today, and one of the reasons she's here, grew up IFB, and the daughter of a deacon, and she's my financial secretary as well, so she can give some interesting tidbits, insight, but no secrets. No secrets away on finances when it comes to her finances or anything that God leads her to say. And then, of course, Brother Peter, missionary kid, grew up having to take care of his finances early in life, and then coming to the States without his parents to get his college education. Didn't you come when you were 17? Mm-hmm. 17 years of age, left Japan, came back here to the United States, and pretty much took care of himself the rest of the way. Yep. And nobody sent him any support checks. No. So, but this thing of finances is actually a very important area to a healthy life in an individual. I think most of the chaos that we see today with the immorality and a lot of other things are due to the fact that family has been torn apart and not structured properly according to the Bible, and then passing on good financial structure to our children early in life. That not being done through the last 20, 25 years, 30 years, maybe even longer, 50 years. Most people's finances are a total mess. So with that being said, I will say that I believe our view of the house of God is often the reason we lack God's blessing in our finances. Haggai 1:6 says, "Ye have sown much and bring in little. Ye eat, but ye have not enough. Ye drink, but ye are not filled with drink. Ye clothe you, but there is none warm. And he that earneth wages to put into a bag with holes." And to find out the answer why that is, it says in verse 9, it says, "You looked for much, and lo, it came too little. And when ye brought it home, I did blow upon it. Why, saith the Lord of hosts? Because of mine house that is waste. And ye run every man unto his own house." Mm-hmm. And we see a lot of that today where people are more interested in their homes and their life than they are in the house of God. Good illustration, I was talking to a pastor, actually Brother Combs, while we were putting the sound system in. We were talking about how people like to come to the church and say, "Pastor, I bought a new refrigerator or a new couch, and we want to donate the old one to the teen department," you know. And we just laughed about that. How nobody walks in and goes, "Hey, I feel like buying a new couch. I want to give it to the youth department." Everything used. But there is, I believe, a very clear, if you read Haggai chapter 1, you'll see a clear connection how God he actually works against those who ignore the house of God. Mm-hmm. And so one of the first things I think that in our home was we always want to make sure that finances were never a reason that our children didn't get involved in church. So, Dad, if I didn't have a job, I didn't take a job that pulled me out of church, because that would communicate completely the opposite. Mm-hmm. It would say that I put most of stock in my finances in what I can do, not what God can do. But if we look at the house of God properly, we're going to put Him first. That means we're going to be present in everything. We're not just going to attend church. We are going to be intertwined with church and part of church and the mechanism to making it go forward. I even use this concept in pastoring people today. I can think of families that I'm working with. I wish they would just trust me when I say, if you want to be stable in all areas of your life, your marriage, your child rearing, your finances, you need to be stable in your involvement in church. And so putting church foremost actually gives you the ability to stabilize in every other area of your life. And in essence, godly character is having a correct view of money. We know that the love of money is the root of all evil. Mm-hmm. It doesn't say money is the root of all evil, but it says the love of money. In Ephesians 4:27 through 28, it says, "Neither give place to the devil. Let him that stole, steal no more, but rather let him labor, working with his hands the thing which is good, that he may give to him that needeth. And there again, one of the key places where we would resource our giving would be through the house of God. So having that proper venue of letting our children see the needs, the people that are in need, through the church doors and through the church ministries, help them to have a better perspective on why they needed to be someone who worked and labored, and gave them the understanding of exactly why they worked. It wasn't so that they can build their houses, their sealed houses, and live in them and dwell in them. It was so that they could be a help to others. And that character is missing in our young people today. Mostly they're looking for something to become that will give them the most money. And that's funny how they do that, because then they justify going to state institutions that take them out of church, take them away from the bus ministry, take them away from soul winning. And I can hear all the reasons. No, they'll go soul winning, but they always cut back from the actual functions of the body of the church. And so, the body of the church, Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, the body of the church, organized soul winning, going out, being part of the bus ministry, teaching a Sunday school class. When you sever that because you're trying to go study to become something so you can make money, you're leaning towards the love of money, and you're not developing the right kind of godly character in your life that you need to have God's blessing on it. 2 Thessalonians 3:10 through 12 says, "For even when we were with you, this we commanded you, that if any would not work, neither should he eat. For we hear that there are some which walk among you disorderly, working not at all, but are busybodies." This is important when you read that, to understand what the Bible is saying about you. If you will not work at all, you're actually being disordered. You're in disorder. You're not being orderly. You're walking disorderly, and basically, you're going to find that kind of person being nosy and interjecting in other people's business, and nothing good comes from somebody who's lazy and lethargic in their work ethic and decide. A person that thinks they can get away with not working will have tons of trouble in their life, and they will cause tons of trouble in other people's lives. There's no way around that. Now, them that are such, we command and exhort by our Lord Jesus Christ, that with quietness they work and eat their own bread. So, it has always been important to me to acknowledge the fact that my financial state, my finances, was a direct reflection to my doctrine. If I do not have the right doctrines, I will not have the right. The Bible says, "Let all things be done decently and in order." Well, if my finances aren't in order, what else isn't in order? Right. So we can't be a person that will pay our bills if we're not in order. We're not going to tithe and give our offerings if we're not in order. And in essence, it works against faith as well. So, I don't know what to say, but I was telling my wife earlier today, I feel like this whole transgender movement is being born out of a lethargic, lazy, spoiled generation of people who parents have tried to let their kid not have any stress on their life. Yep. Whether they're not made to work, go out and work. They sit around on the TV and the internet, and there has to be that pressure, demand on a young person to learn to put their hands to what God intended them for. If they're not doing that, it's no wonder that they can't even get their own gender straight. Mm-hmm. So, I think if you look at people that have gone the way of homosexuality, all these things, this sick world, you'll find a group of parents that didn't make their child work. They paid for everything. paid for their schooling, paid for their college, and if they did have a job, they spent their own money for themselves. They didn't really take care of their responsibilities. And dad, mom co-signed for them on different things and just made it possible for them to skate through life without really having to pay the piper when it comes to work. But I find that if you, like I've got 2 boys, and I find that if you put a shovel in their hand and stand in the face of their condemnation of you when you're looking at them saying, you're going to dig the hole and I don't care if you like it or not. What you find is by the end of the time, the duration of digging the hole and then filling the hole back in and all the blisters, you find 2 boys that will walk away more of a man than less of a man. If you don't let them whine out of it and be sissified. So, I mean, sissy boys are created by parents who don't make their children take responsibility for their life. So that's one thing that I think Mrs. Reeves and I were very big on, was always making sure that our kids were very aware of what work was. First, aware of what church it was and church work, and then having chores, having responsibilities at the house, trying to produce that, understanding that everybody relied on them to do their part, and that you needed to carry your weight and do your part. You can't be, I really do think that's something we see. I think you have, and I think we've seen even it in our family, but I think that the older ones tend to be the ones that carry a little bit more of that weight of looking at the younger ones saying, hey, you got to do this, do that, and if the younger ones don't pick up on that and pick up on their weight, they end up being people that take that same character into their life and don't get things. So they don't see things, they don't take care of things, and it ends up working against them. Produces bad attitudes towards authority, all those kind of things, and just kind of it's a domino effect. But financially, a family doesn't have to make a lot of money to be blessed. It just has to have character to do what is right, and that means every single person in the home has to be challenged. And I'm not saying I've enjoyed it, and I'm not saying that anybody underneath me in my family has enjoyed it, but I'm still the nitpicker. I'm still the one pointing out things and challenging my family in those areas, because if our family is going to continue to be blessed, that has to be done. So with that, I'll turn it over to whoever wants to take it over. Go ahead, Mrs. Reeves. Dun, dun, dun.
I don't, at the moment, I don't really have a lot to say. So if somebody else wants to jump in, I don't know if you guys want to jump in on this. I know for the guys, it's even more important because they have to grow up to not only take care of themselves, but to provide for their families and to realize that burden sits on them. And one of the things that I liked when the kids were growing up is that Pastor was very good at a young age, helping you to become entrepreneurs. You know, whether it was learning to mow lawns or learning how to go out there and ask people to mow lawns, all the different things when you were younger, whether it was, what was the thing where you poke the holes in the lawns? Aerating, getting an aerating machine or whatever you call it. I don't even know what they're called. And going and getting jobs, raking leaves, starting when you were young. I remember I kind of felt bad because David and Will they're not like some kids get big early, like by the time they're 14, they look like they're 18. But my boys, they still needed a step stool to help lead the singing at 14. So, and they would go and try to get jobs, and people would just look at them like, "You're a little kid, you can't mow my lawn." I can remember them being so frustrated.
People still look at me like I'm a little kid.
Well, when you get a little older, that's to your benefit because people think you're younger. But just teaching from the time that they're little that work is work is a blessing. I mean, yeah, it's hard, but you get to turn around and see what you've done, and you get to turn around and say, you know, God has allowed me to be able to provide for myself, to be able to give to others, be able to give things at church. And I was just giving you all guys more time to think.
Well, I'll tell you, from a young age, teaching our kids to tithe whenever they got paid. I would say when they were kids, they didn't get paid hardly. I don't think they ever got paid. We never had allowance. I don't recommend that any Christian mom and dad give their kids allowance. I don't pay my kids to do what they should do normally. They already get paid anyway. They get food, a place to sleep. They get my presents. That's awesome. But they get trips to McDonald's. They get, as kids, there's the natural things that you get. When there was work going on at the church, I didn't allow my kids just to run around and play. I thought that was just a wasted opportunity. And I know some parents are like, well, my kids will just be like so mad that they have to do it, and I don't want them to hate the ministry. Your treasure is where your heart is. And if you don't have them there putting their hands to the plow, they're not going to fall in love with the ministry. So I just didn't let them run around and not be a part of the work that was taking place, whether it be in the house or in the church. And then always talked about the benefit, the goals, what we were going to get out of it, why we were doing it, being clear about it. I didn't allow discussion or whining to go on. Oh, look, you're just going to do it. And, I don't want to do it. We're just going to do it. Come on, let's do it. I mean, they got disciplined if they didn't. So, but then growing up, as people would give them money, gifts, they would learn to tithe. Kids are always more generous on the front end when they're in church. If they get a gift of $10, they won't just put $1 in.
They want to put all
They
10.
want to put $9 in, and then they got $1 left over to buy something stupid at McDonald's or some candy or something like that. So sometimes we had to tell our kids, no, you're giving Jesus too much. And teach them what a tithe was, and then tell them to give an offering, that they should ask God to give, to move on their heart as far as an offering, but then to give them other things to teach them to have eyes for the needs of their own life, that if they began to take care of those needs for themselves, they would mature in character quicker. So whether they needed a pair of socks or a shirt, or they just want to put money away for a trip or whatever it was, we encouraged them to do that. And it's not like we had tons of money, but that was kind of the essence of our forming of our children in that area. But then as they grew older, knowing that one day they're going to turn 16, they're going to want a car. And I ain't buying them a car. My parents never bought me a car. I ain't buying them a car. And I don't understand parents that buy their kids cars. Maybe it's just because I'm jealous, because I have a parent that gave me a car, bought me a car.
My parents didn't buy me a car either.
Yeah. And so that was, I want to say that's old paths. It's just old paths. And, we had the same need for a car that another 16-year-old would have. But our parent and my mom and dad could have afforded to get me a nice car. And I'm so glad they chose, and I helped them make that decision by my bad behavior, because they couldn't trust me. They just knew that wasn't a good thing to do. But if I wanted a vehicle, I needed to find a way to earn the money and to buy my own vehicle. And then back in the day, there wasn't a law at that point where I had to have insurance. So, of course, I did not. And then later in life, I realized the importance of having insurance, not just because it became a law and you get in trouble if you don't, but because you just never know what's going to happen when you're driving down the road. So there's a lot of wisdom in getting insurance, but nobody ever paid my insurance for me. I had to pay my own insurance. And I had to learn the value of making sure that insurance was paid. So transferring that to our children, of course, I would try to help them. So I think when Hope came old enough to to drive. I looked on the internet when they first started selling things on the internet. I found a
eBay.
what site was that?
I don't even know. Because you
I found an
surprised
auction
me.
or something like that, and I bid on. It was bidding on the internet for this purple S10 Chevy pickup truck.
Dark purple.
It was a
Yeah.
blurple.
A blurple.
Blurple. And I won the bid, and I had to have $400 worth of work done to it because it had a blown head gasket. But it was all the way in New York, so I flew out to New York and I drove it all the way back home. And that car
It went through every
went
kid.
through every one of our kids, and I made every single one of them
Pay for
it.
Yeah.
And
You made it.
Buddy
over.
paid 3 times for it, and I don't know how.
I never drove it. I mean, I drove it. I never bought it.
You never paid?
No.
Okay.
What did you pay?
He's the baby.
I don't remember.
Jewel didn't
But
pay for it. She
I
got a
did-
white car.
No, I drove it.
You drove it.
You
but I
crashed
don't
it.
think You bought
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
I don't think so. I
You remember?
I just knocked the mirror. The mirror.
It
off.
went. It went through all of us. All of us drove it, but the only ones who paid for it were Hope and I.
Yeah. So the idea there was I invested the money, and then I didn't have any problem looking at my kids and saying, "This is what you're going to pay me for it." And I don't know what the circumstances were around, because in Radio Land and on YouTube and people watching this, I'm a wicked man because I made Buddy pay 3 times for it. But I promise you, there were some circumstances around it that warranted me being harder on him for those reasons. And it's not that he's just, that's what I felt at the time I needed to do. So if he's still bitter about it, I don't even know what the reasons are, but I trust that
Yeah.
it wasn't because I needed some more money and I wanted to charge him for it. But anyway, so that one car went through all 4 of my kids and really was a training ground for them to move on. And I didn't mind that. I felt like if they could make mistakes with the first investment of a vehicle, and then prepare themselves for buying their own car on their own right after that, then that was good. And then Hope bought her first car when she went to college at Grand Am.
The Pontiac. Yep.
I co-signed on that
You
one.
did. Yes.
But that was the last
And
thing I
you-
ever co-signed for.
And you helped me with the down payment
Yeah.
because I didn't have that.
Yeah.
Because I was going to school.
You'll remember that. I won't. I didn't remember that. So
Yeah.
anyway, I co-signed for her. I didn't co-sign anything. Did I co-sign for you?
Yeah, traded in my truck and that little wrecked moped for the Juke.
For the Juke.
Oh, yeah, the Juke.
Co-signed
Co-signed.
with that for me.
Co-signed for that. Did I co-sign anything for you?
I think you did for mine, and,
white.
No,
and
I,
we traded.
I
in
don't
the
think I.
Suburban for
The white.
that Suburban.
Yeah.
I was driving that for. I don't know. Remember how long?
That's
I
right,
think
I
it was a
forgot.
church's Suburban,
Well-
wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think
It
it
used to
point.
be.
Remember that?
Yeah, you drove it.
Drew it.
You
drove
drove it for your first
Was it
year
year?
of college,
I
but you
love
got
that.
your white card.
Well,
that ended
actually-
the first year.
Actually, yeah. It was my Suburban.
Was it yours?
Yeah,
I don't
but
remember.
the church was making payments on it because that's how we do our vehicles. But it was my vehicle. So if they kick me
think
out,
it's
I'm
cool.
taking the Suburban with me. So, but the dealership was a used car dealership, and they let you make payments right to them. That's what we set up.
Yes.
That's how I helped you there. And you had that paid off a year and a half.
Probably.
Basically, it was paid off quick.
Piece
But you were working. Where were
It
you
wasn't
working?
a piece of
It,
junk.
it worked
Daycare.
for forever.
I was working.
Okay,
at
you're working
daycare.
for me at the daycare. So,
and going to college.
Will, your first car was a Juke?
Oh, the first one I bought. Yeah.
Okay. And then you went to, what'd you have after that?
The
Maserati.
Mazda.
My Mazda.
Okay.
Oh, said
Now,
Maserati.
Mazda, I didn't help you with, right? Okay. What's your first car?
First thing I bought was a motorcycle.
Well, Mrs. Greeley.
Oh, because
gave
you were
him
gifted.
a
Oh,
truck.
yeah.
Mrs.
you
Greeley,
had a pickup
yeah,
truck
Mrs.
that
Greeley
was
gave me
given
a
to you.
pickup truck,
That's right.
and I drove that through high school and through college.
And it's still
8
running.
years.
I think
Yeah.
it's running.
7 years because I got it. Actually, whatever. Yeah, basically through high school and through college. But halfway through college, I bought the motorcycle. I got a
That you
loan
wrecked.
on, paid it off in a couple years.
But
wrecked it.
I didn't-
Insurance paid for it. Thank God.
You bought mine.
And then I bought yours.
We
And
bought it at the
then-
same time. Yeah.
Ended up selling it last year, 2 years ago.
My point is I did not co-sign on that loan
No, because it was a smaller loan. Yeah.
because it's not just because it was small. I'll get to the reason why in a minute. I've always felt that my kids need to understand how valuable good credit is. So you have a credit rating. And if you do not have a credit rating because your parents never let you do anything financially, whether get a car and work with, get that help establishing, having a job, putting money in the bank, having a large down payment. You've got to have a credit rating to be able to go to a bank and saying, I want to buy this. And they'll look at that credit rating. If you don't have a credit rating, they're going to tell you no. And so then you're kind of stuck where you're at. And either somebody's going to have to gift you money or let you co-sign on a loan for you to help you get started, or you just got to go back to the drawing board and work and save and work and save and work and save. But that has been something I felt was very important to all our kids. So counseling them to get a credit card, only use it for gas purchases, that would build their credit rating quickly. And I'm not sure what else credit rating is now, but I'm sure it's good enough because Hope bought a house on her own. David's bought a house on his own. Jewel and Peter bought a house, didn't need me. And you're fixing to go. He's got a business. He doesn't even, he'll probably buy a brand new house and 400 acres.
400 acres. I don't think so.
I don't know. I think
No thanks.
Chris might have the highest credit score here, though.
I
At
don't
the
know.
table.
I might.
Jealous.
Spill the beans. What is it?
She was very mad when I sent her the text of it because I got over the 800 mark before she did.
Yes. Yes.
I think it's interesting because I grew up obviously in an IFB home also, and my parents, there were 6 of us kids. They put us through Christian school. My dad was a pastor, so we didn't have a lot of money, and a lot of the work ethic, my parents taught me same way. I mean, they couldn't afford to give us extras. So, I mean, even things, from the time we started being 11, 12, 13, my mom would have shampoo for us because that was a need. But if we wanted hair conditioner, we had to pay for it ourselves. So, I mean, we got babysitting jobs. We did whatever we could. And I think by the time I was a junior, I was buying my own clothes. And I think our kids were very similar, buying my own clothes. And, I didn't expect my parents to put me through college. I did have help when I went to college, but my parents couldn't help me. And working 2 jobs in the summer, trying to save up, going to college, paying my first 3 bills and going, oh, my money has run out. And, really learning to have faith in the Lord to meet your needs when you're struggling. And as young married couple, we did not have money. So the older ones probably remember even more when we just, I mean, actually all of them, because I can even remember times when the kids would get money or have money in their piggy bank and the family would have some kind of a need. And I can remember all the kids just pitching in, like bringing all their little money and saying, here, Dad, you can have it. It didn't happen a lot. We didn't take our kids' money, but it happened. I mean, I remember them, that Bible verse that says you work, you get money so that you can help others. The joy of that, I think, is learned as a child. And it doesn't hurt your kids to not be able to have everything everybody else has. And just to be able to say, well, we gotta pray for that, or we gotta work for it. And you work toward those goals. And then once they got older, definitely. And, we have learned so much through the years because, I can remember when we first went to look at buying a house, I didn't have any credit. So these are things that we learned along the road, and then we were able to pass down to our kids at a much, much younger age. We didn't buy our first house until, how long ago? It was like 2016. So,
That's because we put the house of God first.
Yeah, exactly.
And when we bought our house, God gave us far better house than we would have bought if we would have tried to buy a house earlier in life. So to me, all the sacrifice was worth it. And I think the greatest joy that my wife and I have is knowing that our kids are happy financially. They're doing fine. I haven't had anybody come to me and say, no, don't have food, don't have, can you, I just don't, we don't have that feeling like we have to bail them out financially all the time. It's a great feeling, not because of anything other than I'm proud of them and I know that they're doing what God tells them to do. I don't have to question if they're tithing because I see God taking care of them. So I know recently I got to go with Will on one of his business trips down to Kansas and see him work and know, he's doing right by God. God's blessing his business, and that's always an encouragement. So
I think with the college, my eyes were really opened with how many girls, because I work with the girls, I don't work with the guys, but how many girls came to school with no concept of what direction to even go with their finances, whether that's because their families' finances were always a mess, or they just never, they had the expectation, I'm going to get married and my husband's going to do that. Or
it depends on what the thinking of the man is in the house.
right.
Like, I never protected you girls from getting jobs. In other words, I didn't
Right.
think that your place was just stay at home and keep you out of the workplace. Do you realize if that was my thinking, you'd still be living in my house,
Yeah. Yeah.
not working a job?
Yeah.
Say we had, I know some of the girls that came, and we started talking and working with them to try to get them to get their first credit card. That was like a taboo subject for them. Their parents were like, oh no, they can't do that. You can't get a credit card. Credit carders are evil. But with Pastor, he has always taught us in using our credit cards to use them the right way, have that self-control, because it does bring the blessing of having that built-up credit. So I know that was a lot of a struggle for some of the girls to get over.
Nick, real quick point is I've never encouraged young people to have more than one credit card to start with.
Right.
Yep.
That's just simply, even a secured car, I suggest kids' best way to start off is they've got to put $200-300 of their own money into a secured card. That's their limit is what they put in there. So the credit rating's a good thing. I know a lot of parents are worried that their kids will go crazy with their finances. Well, and I can understand that because a child left to himself.
Exactly.
Oh, did I just say that? Yeah.
Yeah.
A child left to himself brings mother to shame. So I ask each one of these kids if you want to, but I have always maintained oversight on their own personal credit cards while they were in my house. And if I felt like they were, I always tell them, don't buy stupid stuff with, and I was preachy, probably irritated. They could tell you, probably irritated the garbage out of them. But today they have sense about their cards, and I don't even know how many cards they have, and I don't really care. I would only care if I started seeing they were living off of those things, and had to have the best of the best, and were buying brand new everything, but couldn't pay bills in other areas. That would be alarming to me. But the character they developed just from working a job helped them. See, that's the thing. People are anti-credit cards, but what they don't understand is they're really not willing to do the work to oversee their children in teaching them to do the work.
Right.
That would keep them from being irresponsible with their credit cards.
Yeah, because it requires you as a parent to be engaged and not just parenting them while they're at home in front of you, but what they're doing when they're not with you. It involves conversations and communicating with your child on a different level than just
Well, and
go
we're
here,
not
do this, do
right.
that.
And we're not saying get a credit card while they're at before they're college age. We're saying, and that also includes means as you're rearing your kids, they have an expectation that even while they're 18, 19, 20, that you still are their parent. You still, according to the Bible, bear responsibility helping your kids get into adulthood. It's not a magic they graduate from high school, they're 18, I'm no longer responsible for you.
No, I think there's a bit of a, it's hard because when you teach on finances, like here we're talking about our family, each one of my kids are different. And so maybe I would recommend one of them to get a card when they were 16, 17, because they have shown me all growing up that they cleaned their room, they did their homework, they were extraordinary in church service, reaching out, and it just had character. They never left the house with messy hair. They, I'm serious.
Yeah, they took care of
They
themselves.
took, when they were crossing their T's and dotting their I's on their own, I may say to them, I can trust you to start early. And some kids, they're just a walking mess. But that's what the parents are missing. They just says it's easier to say credit card bad, when the truth is it's parenting bad, and child bad character. It's what it is. And so you actually end up hurting your children. I couldn't have more than 4 kids. I was schizophrenic trying to keep track of those 4 kids. I honestly, and I look back on it, and I suppose you kids could say I was, but I don't feel like I was ripping my hair out, but I was consistent, always in your face and always asking questions and always challenging you to do what is right. Even when you thought I was being too harsh or too over the top or, extreme, I just stuck to my guns because I knew that's going to build your character, and it'll keep you from making some very foolish mistakes later in life. But I didn't just cut off another avenue of your life because it was potentially scary.
Right.
So each one of my kids had a bicycle with training wheels, and each one of them, I took the training wheels off when I thought they were ready. None of the kids thought they were ready, especially after they went on the bike with no training wheels and fell over and was crying because they had a skinned knee. And they wanted the training wheels back on. I'm like, nope, let's go. Come on, let's go. You make them do it. But you got to be engaged with your children and see where they're mentally, physically, and spiritually growing. And where they're not growing, you have to associate their weaknesses in those areas with, man, maybe I shouldn't give them a credit card. Maybe I shouldn't do that yet. But where one kid could do it, you can look at the other one and say, you make your bed like she does. You do your homework like they do. You stop arguing with mom and dad on everything like they do. And it gives them somewhat of a push and a desire to do what is right so that they can get to that point of adulthood.
I will say with the credit card thing, I think that was something we learned along the way. Hope didn't have one. I think
So my third or
I think
year.
Will was the first
It was
one.
after I graduated from
Because
college.
we got it the same year, and it was my master's year.
Oh,
I think Will was the first one that applied for one, because he probably had gotten an advertisement for a student, basically to students for Discover credit card. The reason I'm telling that specific is because some people just don't realize that when a child or when a young person is a student in college, I know at least Discover, if it's the same as it was before, will give them a credit card because they're a student, and you can take advantage of that. But we didn't know that when the kids were younger, and so I think Will, when he first got it, I think we were all like, "What?" And then, well, try to get one, Hope, and sure enough, she got one too. And so then we learned, that's available, because I know Pastor and I, we'd been married for quite a while before we even had our first credit card. We had trouble renting a vehicle because we didn't live on, we didn't have credit cards.
But
And we're
I
like,
think
how
that
do
was-
you get a credit card?
That
we
was,
didn't
that was
have any
of
money.
God, though, because
Yes.
not you, but I think I had some serious character flaws. And so how much further would we have been down the road if I had learned those lessons early in life and could have gotten a credit card and done right with it? Maybe our life wouldn't have been so challenging in some areas. But at the same time, God's on his throne. He knows what he's doing. And so me not getting that credit card just made me work harder. And in essence, that pours over to my children. And you could be victims, I suppose, because I didn't have the ability to get a credit card. You had to work harder. And how did that hurt you? But I think we do just have this plague of parents who, I don't understand how parents can graduate their kids, not from high school, but from college, and their parents paid the college bill.
Yeah.
Not one of you.
That
I didn't pay any of your bills, did I? I didn't pay your college bills. I didn't pay yours. I didn't pay yours. Didn't pay yours.
That was one of my pet peeves in college, was seeing how many of the kids got their school bill paid by their parents. And it reflected a lot in so many different areas of their life. And I remember in college, I struggled with that a little bit because I paid my own way through college. As soon as I got down to Texas, the first day, I think, I went and applied for a job because there was no way I was going to be able to do anything less. And I think first year down there, I did have a scholarship. So I had a scholarship every year of college that paid a little bit. But that bill was on me. And I remember in college just looking around at the other kids whose parents were paying it for them and thinking, man, that must be nice. You don't have to work all these hours. But I could look at their lives and see
They treated
their
school like a
grades were
joke.
like D's and
bad.
C's. They didn't care
they're
because
the
they
ones-
weren't paying for that education. So
And they're
they
the ones
didn't
that
value
got
it.
counseled
value
their
it.
senior year by the college administration to go get a loan
Student-
to pay off their
student loan to pay off
yeah,
their
and carry their debt into their own life. Where I told you guys, no.
Yep.
you're gonna pay your debt as you go, and when you graduate, not have debt hanging over your head. So, and I think you're probably all pretty grateful for that.
Yes, very much so. Very much.
I think some little things too we could talk about, Jill, is some of the things that we did to save money.
Yes, being frugal is a big part of family finances, and I think a lot of that actually falls on the wife. I mean, either spouse can be a spendthrift or someone who just spends money, so it's definitely not a one person. But I do think sometimes, I guess I'm looking at it from the wife perspective because I'm a wife. So I think you can really help your husband and help your family if you can learn to be thrifty. You find ways to make even food, cheaper meals. You don't have to have the best of everything. I don't have to have. I can remember the first time we got a brand new couch, and my husband brought it home. We already had 4 kids, and I was just like tears in my eyes. I mean, what? We got a new couch? Like new?
We had it for the next 15 years.
I don't think that long, but yes. But I've said, and I think my kids all benefit from this. The fact that when you learn to be thankful for what you have and not have to have all the new stuff up front, as you get older, when you begin to have some of the things that you couldn't afford when you were a little bit younger, the gratitude you have, I think, is just exponentially more because you have learned to do without. And so then when you have it, the opposite can be true, especially if your kids are growing up in a family that isn't really struggling. I think you do have to watch this with your kids because you're going to send them out into the world with this expectation that they're going to basically have all of their needs and most of their wants fulfilled. And then they're going to go into marriage, and when it should be the time when they're struggling, they're not going to be satisfied because they feel like they shouldn't have to do that. And yet, there was a lot of generations before us, the Depression age, where, you made do with what you had. And I can remember when we had sheets for curtains. This was before all the kids were born. But, you figure out how to make do with what you have.
Ones that knew that there were sheets were us.
Right.
Most people, an average person, if you do it right, take time, they walk in, they don't even see that they're sheets. It's just, but in our heads, we're like, oh, we're so poor. Put sheets
Can't
up on
afford to
our
go
way.
to JCPenney and get curtains.
It was a reverse Sound of Music moment.
Have clothes out of curtains.
But
I had to make my
I think
clothes
really
into curtains.
being frugal across the board, whether it's buying the Nestle Quick or some other off-brand, or buying Heinz or an off-brand, or buying Charmin or buying off-brand.
Or how about just not having napkins, not having paper towels, not having paper plates? I mean, when you're poor, you wash your dishes.
Yeah. God help us, we wash a dish.
Right, there are so many ways to cut corners, and it's different in every generation.
Yeah.
But
It's so funny when I go to mom and dad's. Sometimes I have to tell mom, you can afford to buy more than 2-ply toilet paper, right?
they did that. All the kids were getting on me for still buying the
don't know,
one-ply
it's
toilet
like-
paper.
Yeah.
We had gotten so used to it. We're like, but we like this now. We're used to it.
Okay, embarrassing. Moving on to the next thing. Well, I'd like to go around the table and just have everybody tell some jobs that either the parents had them do before they could really make money, or some first jobs they had, or maybe share just a little bit about. I'll let you start.
Yeah, I guess all I could do is really speak to my own experience
That's
growing up. Did a lot of, I guess I wouldn't even call it necessarily profitable work. It's not like I was rolling in the dough, but we did a lot of trying to roll in the dough. Learned how to talk to people. Even if it was all the way from candy bar sales at the school, to trying to get lawns to mow, to when, I don't know if Bud came up with the idea. I don't remember when we came up with the idea for washing windows.
It was Dad. He did it when we were in college.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember, I just specifically remember we tried so hard for so long to get lawns to mow, and it was difficult because you're younger and you're just like, strolling around this push mower. But then we found out, we can make like a good amount of money just washing windows. And that's still to this day, it still surprises me that people pay you to wash their windows. And they're like, how much does it cost? And you tell them and they're like, yeah, okay. I'm like, you do realize you could just do this yourself? I always feel bad washing the windows and then taking their money, but it's like, hey, you're giving it to me. Thank you very much. So I do that. I don't do that as much anymore. I did just a couple weeks ago, I washed some windows that I haven't seen the lady in forever. She's actually a lawyer. I think she's secretary. Her husband's the lawyer. But we started washing her windows when I was, I think, 16. And I reminded her about that. And
You did Dr. Debs.
Dr. Debs.
Yeah, and then
You've done a lot of yard work
then
for her, and
Bill Summers. And
Yeah, I wasn't given a list of the places
well, I'm
I've
just
done,
saying,
but yes.
you act like you don't do it. You still. At
Well, I
times-
haven't done Bill Summers in a while. I haven't done Dr. Debs in a while, just because I've been busy. And in
Well, it's not like
wintertime,
you couldn't
things
go
are
do it again when you need
right.
some money.
Yeah,
Right.
and so that odd jobs, expanding it to one thing that I found is putting on a door hanger, odd jobs, gutter cleaning, just multiple things. Every time I've ever passed those out, I've always made money from them. I don't think it really matters what you're trying to do. Is if you just put your foot to the pavement, your feet to the pavement, you can make money if you're willing to. So. Never had a secular job. Always worked. Blessed to be able to graduate out of high school and came right on staff here at the church. So blessed in that respect. But always had a desire and a drive to make more money on the side. Not just to have the money, but because growing up in an independent fundamental Baptist home, you're not going to get paid a lot. You're not. I said the way I said that was funny. Growing up in independent fundamentalism, I should say, as a church staff, you're just not going to be rolling in the dough. So learning to subsidize that and find other things to do, I think is important. So those are some of the things I did.
It's good.
So I think growing up, it was less about extra money. I don't think I ever did. So I didn't go with you guys to do lawn work not never. We did sometimes.
Raking leaves a few
raking
times.
leaves and aerating yards and cleaning up yard waste, stuff like that. But for the most part, it was more about how to save money during those years. So whether it was learning to sew, I made all of our own culottes, and we didn't spend. I mean, it was between $25 and $45 for a pair of decent culottes. Do you have any idea how many? 3 women in the house. You're going through those. So learning to sew, and learning to cook, all the normal what you'd call housework stuff. But then my first job was when I was, I think, 15. I was almost 16. And I started cleaning a lady's house. And she lived, I could walk to her house. So that's what I would do. Sometimes Mom would come and help me, and she would drive me over there, which was always nice. But that was my first official job. I hated it. I hated it.
That was
so
that elderly
much.
lady, and she was kind of cranky.
She was very cranky, and I'd always get a phone call saying that I missed something, and I just could not understand how she hadn't fired me because I thought she hated me. And it would get a little frustrating because I didn't get paid. I don't even remember what I got paid, but I know the guys could go out and do mowing for a day and get paid in one day what I got paid in an entire month. And so I remember feeling frustrated about that. But I do know when I left that job, because my first real job was working in the kitchen at
Linden
Court.
Linden Court. Yes.
Yeah, at Linden Court, which is a nursing home here in town. But I remember the lady almost was in tears that I was quitting to clean her house.
And you
she
also
said
realized,
I was like
oh.
the best cleaner she'd ever had. And I was like, well, I had no idea that you hated me. So that kind of taught me the importance of, that was my early introduction of working with people who are not your family. And also working with grumpy people just in general, who you think they're like, have it out for you. But in all reality, they don't. And just learning to keep a sweet spirit. If she was there harping on me, just keeping a sweet spirit, going back, offering to help, do whatever I needed to do. And then, then I worked in Linden Court for, I don't even know how long. Chris, you're better at math.
I know you were there through the summers through college.
Yes.
Because we both did.
So I returned from school.
Yeah.
And did that. Yes, I did that a couple
You were a
times.
security guard at college?
So when I went to college, what was my first job there was daycare.
Yes. Daycare.
I didn't like that either, but I did.
It was not a very well-run
It wasn't
daycare.
a well-run daycare.
What else did you do?
Then
Hotel.
I did a hotel. Then after the hotel, I did this security job. And actually before that, so I did 2 daycares. I did one daycare, which wasn't run very well. But then later on, I got a job at Miss Sandy's daycare. And she's the lady that helped us, gave us a bunch of information to help start our daycares in our town. She's just really personable, and Dad would come in when he'd visit me, and
And that was in Texas. That was when you were in college.
Yes, and when I was in school. And she was just great because she had no problem, like, if Dad had questions, answering them, or I could call her. And so I appreciated that. But yes, I did security guard. You just basically sat in a shack and recorded who came in. And if there was a fight, you didn't do anything. You just recorded that it happened and called the police. So I can't think after that.
You came home, worked for the hotel again,
Yes.
right?
Yep. And I worked on staff.
Yeah.
So at some point when I came home for the summer, I started working at the hotel here in town. And then I worked at the hotel while I was finishing my last year of college here. Then afterwards, I worked on staff for church, and then I did the hotel part-time. And I kind of just never really got rid of that job until last December. It's been amazing. It's been amazing. So,
Just kept you working.
yes.
The first time I remember doing a job was actually kindergarten. Because I've always been going to a Christian school, we had to pay our way through. And we would sell Brother Tyson, the
She's
world's
an
finest chocolate.
overachiever. Kindergarten.
Chocolate.
Yes, I would know. I would go with my dad. At that time, my dad had 2 jobs. He worked on the weekends at the truck stop out in Hershey, and he would take me on Saturday afternoons and let me sit there for several hours and sell chocolate. So that was my first introduction to working, I guess, to pay for something. And then that summer, I actually did lemonade stands for a bike that I wanted. I had wanted a bike, and Mom and Dad looked at me and said, well, if you want it, you have to come up with the money to pay for it, because I wanted brand new, you know. So I bought my first bike when I was 6 years old. So I had odd jobs all through growing up years. We did a paper route for several years until I got really sick in 9th grade and had to drop that. It was just too much on my health. And then my first, I guess, secular job was Linden Estates, the sister to Hope's job that she had, again, working in the kitchen. And that was an introduction for me, just kind of getting thrown into that world of people that didn't care about anything. So, and then I started doing laundry at the hotel, which really got me my job set up for college, because when I went down to college, I applied at a Hampton Inn, and I worked all 4 years, well, actually technically 5 years, putting myself through college by working at the Hampton Inn. And then when I graduated, I came back and I started working at the daycare for one summer.
You worked Hampton Inn too, didn't you?
I did. One summer I worked both Hampton Inn and daycare. And then I think I went back to school for my final semester.
I think a lot of
is when
people
I
forget.
stopped
A lot of
daycare.
people forget that worked daycare and then left and then act like they were abused.
Oh my
They
goodness.
they forget ministry. We're always up front. You're going to have to find other sources of income
Yeah.
if you want to live at a higher, you know. And you guys understood that.
Yeah.
Didn't need counseling every 2 weeks because you're having a nervous breakdown.
Yeah. And I think kind of, I can't speak for Hope, but I know for me, those early years of really realizing, okay, I can't have everything I want unless I want to work for it.
Yes.
Really instilled in me going into my adult college age, that if I want something, I'm going to have to work for it. Even as recently as, this last year, when money was tight for me, I didn't go whining to my parents. I didn't go whining to my boss and saying, I need a raise. I found a way to make some other alternate money until I didn't need that. So it's just really getting out there and working. It's not about the money so much as what you're willing to do.
And you have a very hardworking father.
Yes.
High work ethic.
Yes, my dad has always, and he always had me helping him, whatever he was doing. My dad didn't have boys. He had 2 girls. And as the oldest, I always went with Dad. Oh, Dad, what are you doing? Okay, let me go.
Chet's hobby was work.
Yes. Another thing growing up, I mowed my parents' lawn and my grandparents' lawn because Dad was working. He would work in the summer times. He would work what they called 4-10s. So he'd work 4 days a week, at least 10 hours. Normally, it was more like 14 hours a day. So there was just no time. So I took that over. I think 3rd grade is when I started mowing lawns for my parents, and then my grandparents. Of course, my grandpa was disabled, couldn't get out there and do it, so I did that for him as well. And I think my parents never paid me. I mean, monetarily. But my grandparents, I think, gave me $5 a month that they put into a savings account. I never actually saw the physical money. They put it in the account, and I could, do my tithe and offering, but that was all. It was set aside for when I went to college.
Amen.
I had a long work history, so
Fly through it there, son.
I think the things that bear mentioning are like when, before I ever actually started any kind of secular job, did a lot of work. Of course, grew up working with Dad. Was always doing something with Dad, either getting in the way or helping. And so I can remember lawns was probably the first thing. It was the start of RNS services, trying to mow lawns. And that was shortly after we had moved here to North Platte. So I can remember, things being busy. I remember taking the lawnmower and the weed eater and a blower and stacking them up on top of each other and just walking down streets. Didn't have a truck, didn't have a trailer, didn't have nothing. And Dad was like, go out and mow some lawns.
Door to door.
And I would just push it down the street. And I would do 3 or 4 blocks, knock on doors. And honestly, probably only did like maybe 10 different lawns, partially because you're young. But I remember the character of being, going door to door and telling them, hey, I'm mowing lawns. And
Well, you weren't doing it to get rich. And I knew that. You were just doing it to get money.
right.
So 10 lawns for your age, just starting off pushing it down there and knocking on doors. That's so valuable for you. I mean, oh, that was cool.
Yeah. And let's see. So I did a lot of that. I think I got my first job when I was, about 17.
Speedy delivery? Was
Nope.
that first?
Nope. I worked at a call center
No? Oh, that's
for
right.
like 3 months.
That's right.
So that was I've actually told this story before on the broadcast, but I worked at a call center, and then I worked at a package handling company, and worked delivery for Pizza Hut, and then worked, I think that was right before I went to college, those jobs, and then worked at a security place. And when I came home, I worked at a door manufacturing company, and then I worked at Cinda's Accents building frames, and then I worked at Walmart overnights, and I worked at, let's see here.
Did you say speed delivery?
That was
Yeah,
way
was
at
at
the
the
beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I worked at Bank of the West, and then my manager
Equitable.
went to Equitable, and she called me and said, hey, come work for me. So I went
And
to Equitable.
none of these jobs you got fired at.
No.
You just moved up.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So from the first job that I ever worked, I never made less in the job that I went to. Didn't matter where it was.
In each one of your lives, you've been all of you, even Christine, I'm sure we're going to get to you, the same thing. Putting God first, church first, soul winning first,
Right.
bus ministry first. Do you feel like there was a shortage of opportunities for you?
No, I only ever had one job that I would say it was a struggle when it came to the church side of things, and that was the manufacturing job, because they had days where they would work late, and I told them before I started working for them, I said, hey, I go to church, just so you know, at this time I have to go, and they're like, that's fine. And of course, it's not fine, you know, when the line's running. I gotta look at them and be like, look, hey, this is exactly what I told you. You know, I gotta go. And I'm talking, I'd push it to the last minute. Like, I'm gonna give you everything I can. And then I remember I had 2 or 3 times where I had to just go up to my boss, go up to the manager and be like, I gotta go, you know. They never fired me because I'm a hard worker. I kept that line moving. I mean, and when
Produced more doors during that
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
You know, when they didn't want to see you go.
It went really well. So, I mean, you can, and I'd like to tell this to kids a lot, because even when I went to school, there were kids that would skip Wednesday night service, and kids that grew up in good Christian homes, and they would say, well, my job. And I'm going, that's a bunch of baloney, because I worked like 8 jobs, you know, before 10 jobs. No, well, pretty much 10 jobs before I'd gone to school. And I'm like, I've never had a single one in almost every sector. I've never had a single one that said I couldn't go to church, because I told them beforehand, hey, I'm going to church, you know, I'm going to be there. So, and sometimes it means getting a job that allows you to do that. That's when I worked overnights at Walmart, was because I needed a job, and the only one that was available was an overnight position, and it did not interfere with church, because we're not going to church at midnight. So,
Do you think that the earlier jobs that you had before you were really old enough to get a job, you made your own money mowing lawns and talking to people, telling them what you can do in your service and having to interact with them, prepared you to have the boldness to say to those employers, I will not work Wednesday night. Because I feel like there's such a cowardice with this next generation, college kids that are like, well, I have to pay my college bill, so I can't tell my employer I'm not going to work Wednesday night. It's just a big fear.
I think we grew up learning what good communication was, and I've said this before. You know, going soul winning from the time from the time we were real young, going soul winning with our parents, learning how to approach people and talk to people and communicate, and then the emphasis on communication in our family when we were growing up, that really contributes to, when you're in a work environment, being a part of a team and being able to communicate. And then when you're in front of somebody, I honestly can say I've never had an interview where I was necessarily super nervous, because, I mean, you're going to, like, either you want me or you don't, and I'll just go to the next one and find that job. And I heard no a lot growing up, so I'm totally used to that.
You're
Nope,
good with
not
You were
hiring
rejected a lot.
No, but and to be honest,
Hasn't stopped.
And when it comes to getting jobs, I can say that there weren't very many that when I walked in the door that I didn't walk out with them saying, "Hey, you want to start in a couple of days." So that happened on multiple occasions. Speedy Delivery was that way. Actually, the call center was that way. The door company, I think, was one of the only ones that it was they were
A
like,
process.
they actually had a union or whatever that was part of all that. So it was weird. But most of my other jobs, it was like you walk in, even at the security job, went in and talked to the owner, and he hired me that day, and it was like, here, come. Like, I didn't even finish filling out my application. He's like, come over here and sit down and watch these training videos. We'll start you, in a couple of days, as soon as I got the background checks and everything for security. But I can remember, I've never. That's why I look at people who struggle with, they say they struggle with getting a job, and I'm like, I've worked so many jobs in the world, and I have never ever struggled to go in someplace and be like, will you hire me? You know, do you need someone who can hand out, you know, do something, sweep a floor, do something? And my speedy delivery job was mostly washing vans. So, I mean, I sorted packages. That was hard because I have no idea where all these little towns are. But, and then up to now, where I have a job that I do on the side. It's a full-time job shoved into part-time.
It's not a job. It's your business. You
Right.
created it.
Right.
I think it's pretty awesome. I'm
It's
giving
full-time-
you kudos
right.
for that. I'm not.
It's full-time work shoved into negative part-time
Negative
negative part-time hours, but it's I'm thankful for, and I told Dad this when he went with me on that trip. I said the amazing part about the business is I don't promote it. I don't send out mailers. I don't go tell people please hire me. The business over the last 4 years it's grown, and the business has found me, which is another way I can say that God is blessed, because I can look at that and be like, it's not because
Exactly.
You know.
I was just thinking about the fact when you took the step of faith to go away, to quit your jobs, go to school,
Yeah.
go away to college, knowing that's what God wanted you to do, got an apartment, knew you had to get work because you had to pay for college and your apartment and your
Right.
car and your phone and all that stuff. And that's when God gave you that first big job with your business. Yeah.
What would you say to, there's a mindset that criticizes people going into the ministry because they'll never make any money. I remember, one of your desires was, I want to have a business so the church doesn't have to pay me. And I remember always telling you, said, son, you can't serve God and mammon, because it's a scriptural premise. And finally, you came to a point where you realized that that's why your business is a business that's on negative part-time. But God's blessing it. What would you say to those people who maybe are in a situation where they could go serve the Lord, or they can pour themselves into a career? And what brought you to the decision that you made?
A lot of that, I feel like a lot of that decision was you could say made for me. I say that because just like we've talked about before, finding God's will. If you just do the small things that God wants you to do, He will show you in the bigger areas. And I do know that when I was younger, I looked at the life that we had, not with disdain, but to say, man, I sure would like to make more money, in a very immature way, to be like, I'd like to be able to have some things I want. And the older that I've gotten, the more I've seen that God has provided in those areas. And then as our family's grown and the ministry has grown, I've seen that never really needed to be a concern. It never really needed to be something I worried about. So I would say that was a spiritually weak part in the way that I viewed finances. But the older I've gotten, I've also seen, so I'll be honest with you, if you're not willing to stay up until 2 a.m. after you've worked until 10 on a physical job at church, you're not gonna have what I have, because that's what I do. And I do it on a regular basis. So, and that's not to tell people that they can't have something nice. You can, but there are people that pour themselves into their careers to make a lot of money. And I don't do it to make a lot of money. I do it because this stuff found me, and this is work that's got to get done. And I had a dad that taught us, your work's got to get done. We joke a lot because we'll have times where it's like, whether it's dad working on something and us, we're like, okay, all right, time to shut her down. Dad could just work until late into the night. I feel like us guys, and even the girls probably too, have picked that up, and we're very passionate about when it comes to when we want to work on something, that we work on it, and it's like it consumes us. And I think we're that way about ministry. I mean, if all my clients decided that's it, we're done, we're moving to someone else, I would be perfectly fine. Why? Because I'm a hard worker. I'm not afraid to say it. I'm not boasting about it.
A couple other clinics that'll start up not too long after that. Doesn't
Yeah,
matter, right?
yeah. It'll work out. It's whatever God wants.
Amen. Pete?
Well, I started at an early age. It wasn't 5. Oh, my word. Christine is bragging over there. No, I can remember growing up. We would just be helping around the house with chores. And I did grow up. My parents did give us an allowance, but it was pretty inconsistent, and it wasn't a whole lot. It was the equivalent of $1 or $2 here and there. And usually out of that, one of the reasons was because we were responsible to save up for like Christmas, for all of, to buy everything for everyone else, but and birthdays and stuff like that throughout the year. But one of the first things I think that really helped me as far as my work ethic and the things that I got that I'm good at in my life is that, of course, my parents are on the mission field, and one of the things we did when I was about 10 and 11, we got to build our own church building. So that was a task in itself. It was actually an interesting, fun story. So over there, land is at a premium. And we found this, I should say my dad found this little 1/6 of an acre lot. I want to say 1/6 of an acre because we paid, I say we again. I was there.
We know what you mean.
We paid $150,000 equivalent for it. Now, the down payment on that I know was made possible because of a situation that happened there, and my dad had gotten from a Japanese businessman in there, quite a decent amount of, I think it was over $10,000 that Dad put toward the down payment on that. Anyway, we had been looking for our own church building because when we first and originally got there, we had a church house. And then my dad was looking around. We found this English school, a school that taught English that my dad was able to teach for. And because of that, we were able to use their building that they have for free on the weekends and for Wednesday nights. So we were able to use that. But we went on furlough, came back, and that whole situation had changed and moved on. So we had to move back to having church in our house. And where we rented our house from, the owner of that actually didn't want us to be having that. So whole situation where we had to basically find another place, move, and my dad didn't want to have to ever have that happen again. So he started looking for a place that he could start to buy. And we had a friend, another missionary friend there, the Craigs, that they built their own church building. And they went back to the States, went to Home Depot, loaded up a container full of stuff and brought it back, put it together. And they actually started doing that and helping other ministries around, other missionaries around Japan. And he actually started it as a business for his boys, going around and Japanese families, they wanted American architecture or something like that. I don't know how exactly it worked, but he would have them build buildings, stick frame, 2x4 structures and stuff like that. And occasionally, my dad would take us three older boys, to help them for a day or two or do different things. And I think that's where my dad got the idea that he would build our building. Now, back then it looked really big to me, but it's basically only 50 foot by 25 foot. It was a double story. It looked like the Ark. Really, it was just a big box. It was no, you see all these, all these angles. And I look at all these stupid houses around, and they have like 15 different angles that intersect on their roofs, and you're like, why? It's so dumb. You can have so many more
build a
leaks
box,
that way.
man. Just build a box.
Build a box and slap a roof on top of it. That's all you need. It doesn't need to look pretty. Talk
about frugal.
Live inside of it. Anyway, through that process, I remember I was about 10, 11 when we first started it, digging the foundation. We first had to clear the land. It was just all overgrown with weeds. And I thought that was the funnest thing ever because over there in Japan, weed whackers over there do not have string. I thought that was the silliest thing coming back to the States, and they only had string. Saw blades. Oh, yeah. Well, because what you're cutting down is stalks of who knows what. Yeah, that was the greatest.
How you made it out of Japan with your feet out of
it was great. It was great. I used to mow the next weed field over.
That's what happened to his brother. I thought he was just short.
We had a seventh child.
Did you have a problem feeling like you were poor and being associating that with ministry and being frustrated?
No, mainly because I just didn't know any different.
You pretty much grew up dumb.
Pretty much grew up ignorant of that whole situation. Yes. As far as I'll get to that a little bit. So the main thing was basically from the foundation up. I got experience in construction. Everything from the concrete work, which we had to build our own forms for. That was also a mess.
You still can't do.
Still can't. Praise God.
We can't do. You can say we.
Yeah. But all the way up to the roof and everything in between, got a lot of experience doing that. From that point, we had actually an opportunity as we were in our teens, my two older brothers and myself, we actually went and worked for a guy for basically a month on and off. and helped him finish out a house that he had up at a lake someplace. And we got paid a decent amount for that. That, I would say, is probably what I would call my first paying job. It was a decent amount. Most of that went into savings. And when I was able to come to the States when I was 17 and a half, really, that was all put aside because my parents knew I was going to need that. They'd also counseled me and did a lot of work with me on, hey, you should probably put this away. You've got this coming up, that kind of thing. So when I got to the States, the first thing basically I knew to do was I went and hit the pavement, started putting in applications at different places. I remember putting in an application at Food Line, at Giant, at all these other places. I finally got hired after like a week and a half at Kmart. And then my brother got hired pretty much the same exact time at Panda Express.
And he's still there today.
Wow.
And
He's been working there since 05.
20 years.
Oh my
Almost.
goodness.
It's been there.
crazy.
But he's moved up.
It's called faithful.
that is faithful.
It is good.
You know what?
Anyway, Kmart, I worked there for that was my first taste of working in a secular.
My first job was at Kmart, Pete.
Praise God. It was for 2 months, and I'm glad it only lasted that long. Actually, technically, I worked for Sears Roebuck for, I think, 2 weeks, technically, because they got bought out. Some weird situation there. They were changing it into a Sears Essential. I think that thing failed totally.
Yeah.
I never remembered seeing one of those stores ever since then. Anyway, my brother liked the situation he was working at, so I went and worked at Panda Express after that for about a few months. At which point, I actually I went to college, which thankfully Panda Express was over near college too. And I was able to not only move over to California and work in Panda Express there, but they gave me a raise because
California pays more.
yeah, it does, seriously.
They charge you more for everything too.
This is why he
They
makes
do.
such
They
good
do.
orange chicken.
But he was living in the dorms. He was living in the dorms, right?
That's expensive though.
Yes, I was paying room and board, but I paid my way through college for the time I was there. I had a little bit of help on my master's year. There's a lot of extra things I was doing. My parents helped me get my first car, my first computer, and pretty much ever since then I've gotten everything on my own. So it's been a great blessing. So went through college, basically worked for the first 2 years at a secular job, but then the college hired me on full time to help with maintenance or basically cleaning and setting up and tearing down, that kind of stuff. They pretty much worked all that through the rest of college. Graduated college, moved back to Maryland, and was looking for a job, going through a lot of different avenues, and nothing was really coming up. But my pastor at that point, he had gotten in touch with someone he knew from Woodlawn. Brother Jim Colacello used to work at, he died a long time ago, but he used to attend Woodlawn, and he was he worked for a specific company that worked at a specific agency, which I cannot mention.
Can you seriously?
But I
not
was
say?
able to use,
He can say.
but he was able to, because of his influence of having a good work ethic and having worked there for a number of years, got me an interview with that company, and they hired me on, and I basically worked there for the time I was in Maryland. And ever since then,
CIA.
He worked for a contracted cleaning company that cleaned the
Worked
CIA.
for the CIA,
But
right?
No,
cleaner,
you worked
a
for the-
cleaner company.
I had
You
a
clean.
security clearance. to
It's
work
not really
to
cleaning in the
CIA.
building. You're going out and doing cleaning, right?
Cleaning.
You're a cleaner.
Ah.
So you were
Cleaning.
laundering,
He was
No.
laundering money.
laundering money? Not just
No,
joking.
they did not have a laundry.
He had a job, but he can't tell you what it was, or he have to kill you.
No, not me. They will.
They have contract workers for that.
Then he stepped up and got a real job. Came work for me.
Bless his heart.
Yeah. Did a lot. Have done a lot.
You have done a lot, no doubt about that.
But I want to say that one of the interesting points that when I first got hired on at that company is AECOM, is American Engineering Company, is what it's. They have a huge amount of contracts. It's I think it's Fortune 500 company. Anyway, but when I went to the interview for that, and I was in college. They taught me, wear shirt, coat, a jacket, tie. It doesn't matter if it's for McDonald's. Wear a tie. Well, put on a sport coat. At least look nice. Your best you can. I walked into that, and it was during an orientation session, and I didn't realize it, but in that, they had just newly hired on the general manager for the entire section that I was working in, and he saw me there. And I didn't realize who he was at the time until about 2 months later. I had been working at the company and been doing my best to work up. And then a position came open that I worked for a number of years that they hired me on to do that one. But the reason he thought of me was because when he saw me at the interview, he thought I was interviewing and applying for a job that was actually over his position. Yeah.
Coming for you, brother.
Something like that. So I was like, why? Who is this kid? Anyway, I just thought that was interesting because you know what? The way I was able to present myself and the way I was able to just clean cut, dressed up, it was for a cleaning position. I knew that. Sure. But I was in a shirt and tie. And of course, at church, I remember cleaning many toilets and floors, wearing a shirt and tie and a suit coat.
You didn't know you were in training.
No.
Legalist.
So I was in uniform.
All right, Jewel.
Mine's a short list.
It is.
One that I don't think David remembered. We did a paper route when we were
I remember
That's right.
in high school.
I think we just filled in for somebody, but yeah.
But still.
Yep, I forgot about
we
that.
got paid for it. So I remember getting up
Did
super
we?
early.
I saw
I did that
Yes.
too. I did that too.
We did.
Kidding.
It
That
was
John.
pennies.
Yeah, you had to collect, remember?
I think it was us three
was-
that really did that. Yeah.
Did you do it with us?
Oh yeah.
I don't remember.
You don't remember
just
me
remember
taking
it's
apart that
early.
little wagon thing?
Mhm.
I remember
Stuffed it full
I
of the-
retrofitted
I
that
remember
with
you
those.
being so
Right.
excited around Christmas because they were giving you tips.
Mm-hmm.
We had the side cart, or it was the pull
It's one
behind
of the
cart.
pull behind like bike
For
carts
kids,
for like
yeah.
kids, and I retrofitted it with those bags you're supposed to carry on yourself.
I retrofit.
Oh yeah, I took everything apart when I was a kid. I didn't put it back together very well, but I took it apart.
We got that from our
Anyways.
neighbors.
And I had David ride back there, and he would chuck the papers. I would
must
ride the
not
bike,
have
and he
been
would
here
throw
for
the
that
papers.
No wonder nobody got their paper.
Let's see. The first job I got was my senior year of high school. That was right when we started our daycare ministry. And I was working half day. Well, I was going to school half days in the morning, and then the afternoon I would do half day at daycare. Mainly because I was caught up in my work. I was where I should have been, and actually probably ahead, because that's really the only way you can do that in AC. My mom didn't give me more work than I had to do, thankfully. Then daycare pretty much the whole time until Dad had the idea to start the open enrollment school. 3 years, well, going on 3 years. So I've been working as a teacher in the school since then. But we have done odds and ends. I remember helping the guys with mowing and their lawn service. I remember one time getting yelled at because I was doing the weed eating, and somebody called me a weed whacker, and I just broke down because I'm like, that's so mean. David's like, no, it's not. You'll be fine. And then when Pete and I got married, we did a cleaning business.
Oh, that's right.
And we could probably, if we needed money, we could start it back up again. It's not something that's hard to also clean for my mom.
And
That's
you
right.
do art. Yeah, you do those
I did.
pictures. You
Long time ago.
you can
A jewelry thing on the side,
refurnish,
too.
refinish furniture.
Furniture, right? I
I
did
mean,
the
there's
organ.
Tons of stuff you guys do, and then you girls, you sisters have a earring and jewelry thing you're working on
Yeah.
together.
It's like one of those things.
Yeah,
It's one of those things you start
It's
and then
all
some-
in
It takes a little bit more than
sparrow.
negative time. So
Yes. Yeah, that's just one of those.
the bottom line is you're resourceful.
Industrious.
You're a Proverbs 31 woman, and she hasn't mentioned this, but she's a mother of 3 children, and the wife of a husband, keeps house, does all those things full time in the ministry. And I don't know if there's a time where you're not doing something.
I was
someone
laughing
does.
when someone was saying something about Dad being consumed in work. And the last 2 weeks, we've done a photo, what is it called? A photo booth type thing. And the first week, it was the ice cream. I painted ice cream on this wood frame that Pete built that you could stick your head in and get a
You
picture
didn't
with.
paint ice cream on the.
No, I didn't paint ice cream on it.
Not
I
with
painted
ice
a picture of ice
ice
cream. An ice cream cone. Excuse me. Anyways, and then this week we did what?
2 international.
2 international people on the board, and I
You painted
literally-
with international people?
Yes, yes, definitely. But I
We're
feel
trying
that
to be politically correct here. So
I feel that way because it's like you get so consumed and you're like, I don't want to stop.
Yeah.
I just gotta finish it. And then once it's done, it's just like so rewarding.
Jill, give us your list quickly.
Oh my, I wasn't planning on doing that, but I will throw in. I think Will was the one talking about how you don't have to miss church in order. You know, you can get work, and it's harder now. Probably even back when I was a teen, but it was the same back then. People, you know, worked Wednesday nights when I was in college and stuff like that. So. But that is so true. And with girls, there's even another step because not only do you got to worry about not wanting to miss church, but you also have the clothing issue wherever you go to look for work. And it's funny, I was just helping a lady in our church who's been applying and going different places. And I told her, I said, I have learned you don't need to bring that up at the interview. You interview well. When you get offered the job, that's when you can bring it up because then you have the law on your side because they can't discriminate and they have to give you whatever kind of accommodation that is possible with that job. And I learned that, getting one of my first jobs. I think my first job was Kmart. I didn't have a problem there because I worked in the office. I could wear whatever I wanted. And then
McDonald's.
I did several jobs before that. I worked at a clothing shop in the mall.
Restaurant?
Worked at a restaurant, another kind of restaurant. But I always had to get new jobs because I started working right after high school. And so then I went to college. And then I came home in the summer and I didn't have the same job. So I had to get a new job until I did find that McDonald's job. And I never had applied at McDonald's because I knew that their uniform wasn't something that I wanted to wear. As far as because it didn't have a skirt. So, but finally, I mean, jobs back then were just not easy to find. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go in there and, I think I was a sophomore at this time or a junior. And I just thought, you know what, I think I can, let me just see if I can get the job and then I'll deal with that. And so, of course, that's what I did. I think I hadn't even got all the way through the interview, same as everybody else, with this fast food job. And they had asked me when I could start. And then I said to him, well, I have this one thing. I've been looking at your uniforms, and I'm a Christian, and I don't wear pants, so I'll need a religious accommodation. And I said, and I noticed your hostess uniforms has skirts, so maybe I could wear that, or I can make something that will look exactly the same. And I remember the look on his face was just like he, jaw drop, like, I don't even know what to do with this girl. like he just stared at me and then
he wanted to hire you.
Well, then he got up and he walked into the back and I saw him walking around back and forth because I think he just didn't know what to do. He had never had that issue. And so then he came back out and he said, okay, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to write you up as having a hostess job, but you don't have a hostess job because they got paid more. That was like a promotion. But I'm going to do that so that you can have the hostess uniform because that has a skirt. And then I never realized it was such a problem until some of the upper management came in when I was working and they sent me down to the break room in the basement. They were hiding me because I had a skirt on and I was crew and I wasn't a hostess. Funny stuff what happens. But anyway, then got done with college, got a job at a newspaper.
The Vindicator,
entering obituaries and wedding announcements, things like that. Then I worked, that's
Library.
not true. I got a teaching job after college and I taught a year at a church,
Christian
but
school.
at a Christian school. And then I came home because Pastor and I were dating. And so I was going to get married. And that's when I worked at the Vindicator. Then we got married, and when we moved, I got a job at a library. That was a pretty nice job.
It was an answer to prayer because you were pregnant with hope.
And I needed a job with insurance.
Yeah, and they covered her.
Mm-hmm. So
praise God.
That was a blessing. And then I was pretty much a stay-at-home mom until David was, I think he was 3, and I went and taught kindergarten at a Christian school that we were at, and a lady in the church watched him. And since then, I've always just worked in the church, worked in the church but didn't get paid. And Christian school teacher and all that stuff. Until I did get the job I have now, which is working at the hospital.
a lot of times you hear that, I didn't get paid, but we are talking a lot from the family's point of view. And all of my children and my wife that did work for free for the church, I made sure were cared for. So
I got paid richly. I got to be with
I'm
my
not-
children.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, nobody starved.
No.
And y'all had clothes. It was from GW Fashions instead of, the Sears outlets. And
Ain't nothing wrong with that.
But, there were times where God provided extra money. And we remember the banana suits you guys got? That was awesome.
They don't want to remember
And
that.
but there were times, we all enjoyed God's hand of provision through the whole thing. I think in essence, through the show, I wanted family finances, it to be clearly shown that our family's finances were never of great coffers. We never had lots of money. But God never let us go without what we needed, and we all kept a good spirit. I remember all of my kids, if they felt that there was something that was hurting or lacking in our home, they were all very gracious and giving. They wanted to be part of that. I don't ever remember anybody having a nasty spirit, even if I came to them and said, hey, we need to do this.
Boy, I just was having a flashback of all the shoe glue, trying to keep the shoes glued together.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the thing. But I think it's amazing, and to the credit to I think Mom more than me is the spirit that you kids had growing up IFB, growing up with very little materialistic joy. But I think sometimes if your kids are spiritual, it just makes it so much easier. And I think a lack of spirituality in our young people and a lack of, it says train up a child. We can't train them if you're not making them work. Mm-hmm. So putting their hands to the work and being willing to be hard on them has to be done. And maybe I would like to think, for the most part, their character and their spirituality produced in them what they are today more than anything else. It wasn't my heavy taskmaster hand. I just got it started and set the tone. But they genuinely wanted to please God, and they genuinely wanted to be part of the ministry. And I just always tried to make sure they knew it was important for us to pay God what we owe Him, to be generous in our giving, giving to other people that are in need, missionaries, having fun doing those things, and then to be accountable for their own life. If they wanted something, to save it and to buy it themselves, work hard and then put the dream in front of them that they can make their life what they wanted it to be. Just had to work for it. So I think just Mom and I supporting them as they got older and endeavoring to conquer each phase of life of coming home and working a job and being tired and having to deal with moron coworkers and wanting to quit the job or all those exercises of things. But at the same time, Mom's been very good about taking what she has been given and making a home and having 3 meals a day, and we eat together. And I've never seen your mom have a bad spirit about working, and that's transferred to you guys very well. Mm-hmm. So JT, we didn't say anything to you. Did you ever have a job?
Yes. I did wanted to throw 2 things out. Sorry, let me. I thought that something that you said at the very beginning was so good, where you said ministry or church wasn't something that you just did on the side. It was intertwined in everyday life. And that was something that was so part of my growing up as well, was my parents taught me that church wasn't something that you just kind of did on the side. It was very important. It was one of the most important things that you can do. And so all of my jobs, I was able to work it around in such a fashion that I didn't have to make church as well. And tithing as well. I think that that's one of the hardest pills for the older adults to swallow when they get saved and they get in church. But when you're training your children's young, I think it's a lot easier. Tithing has never really been a struggle for me.
Yeah.
Because my parents taught me as I'm counting out the pennies that I found at 7-Eleven underneath the counter. Right, here's 10. All right, 1 goes to Jesus.
Yeah.
And it was just never a struggle for me because it was taught at such a young age.
Yeah, I really think, we just went to a college graduation and big, when I say big college, in essence, it's not a big college, but it's a huge college compared to ours. And their graduating class this year compared to ours here in a few weeks, completely different. But I'll be honest with you, I think the degrees in Christian colleges are starting to reflect a lot more laziness. And I just think the old work ethic to have to work really hard and work in the job and work in the ministry and do what you have to do really weeds out those that shouldn't be in the ministry. And so home finance is very important to make sure that you're always doing right first by God, putting the emphasis on church, living a holy life. That helps because when you're living a holy life, you're not putting money in towards sinful things. And I've been struggling recently with looking around, and even in our Christian realm, looking at the younger people, the younger generation. I cannot believe the amount of time that we spend glued to this. Even good folks, good, productive people in the ministry. It's like, I remember when I was younger and they used to make fun of the TV and they'd say, trance, and your eyes were like, and it really, I looked around the transportation vehicle last night as we were going back to get my truck, and everybody was on their phone at 1:00 in the morning. And I just sitting there going, wow, our world has changed greatly. And so I'm glad that our kids couldn't have all that. It was a different time, and it really, generation-wise, all of internet was brand new, kind of, and we didn't have the money anyway. So Nintendos and stuff like that were just like a luxury to do something like that. Whereas now it's an actual part of even the most poorest household. Everybody has a game station, or kids in public school that parents don't have a job or are on welfare. They got cell phones. Yep. And it's just amazing to me because we really need to put those things down and go back to working hard and making something out of our lives, and finding a joy in knowing that every ounce of what you have labored for, and that God has blessed you in your labors. And that's in ultimate for the IFB, growing up IFB. You'll get through the youth years and then through your college years and stay faithful into your adult years if you learn and have a relationship with Christ when it comes to your finances, and really relying on Him. And it won't be a sour relationship. It will be a good one. You'll learn to embrace the times where you don't have and not be bitter at Him, and not be bitter at Christianity, not be bitter at the church. Nobody did this to you. It was a choice you made. But knowing that help is on its way, or there's something right around the corner, God's fixing to do something. And when He does it, how exciting is that, So
I know one of the things that really helped me when I was younger, even in my teenage years, is knowing that when you are sacrificing, but you are doing it for the Lord, or you maybe not even sacrificing, but investing, put it that way. You're investing, but you're doing that for the Lord, that in the end, it does, he always pays. The Lord, you can't outgive God, and we've all heard that. So whether you're tithing, whether you're giving an offering, whether you're investing your life, your time, and just not to be pulled away by money, and work and jobs, but to use all those things for the Lord. And at the same time, we've said a lot about work on this job because you can't have money without work.
I think that's true.
Right? But
Yeah.
not being sidetracked when you're young by pleasure and entertainment. Those two things will kill you, not only financially, but as a productive Christian.
And I think this kind of episode, as mentioned in our chat, is a boring one compared to all the other ones. And I don't think it's boring to those who know what work is.
Right.
And know what blessing comes from laboring. So I would encourage that younger generation that maybe is listening to this broadcast and going, where's the fireworks? Where's the explosions? And, it's just so boring to get busy and get a job. And one day you'll get to sit at the table and see your kids doing great,
Right.
and prospering in the Lord, and you'll be thankful for it. I think it's time to go to a song, Bill. Will. Sorry, Bill. Will.
Let's go to a song. I just want to thank you, Lord. The brothers, when we come back, we'll do the segment the third degree.
Something with three.
Yeah, be right back. Welcome to the Third Degree, the segment where we answer your questions, no matter how difficult they may be. Have at it. Give us the third degree. And you can ask those questions in the YouTube live chat or by sending a text message to 920-940-8275. Pastor Reeves, over to you.
Yeah, I was just talking with Jewel, and Jewel was saying there are so many blessings that come from being just trusting Christ with the finances, and I thought it'd be good for you to share some of those.
So mom and dad used to always bring up situations when they were younger, how they would be struggling with finances, but then they'd open their door and there'd be groceries on their front porch. And growing up, I mean, I feel like when we got married, we had it good, that situation would never come up, and because God has blessed us so much. But in 2019 or 2020, one of the two.
2019.
Was it 2019? Thank you, JT. Peter had an accident and he fell off the roof.
My first week here.
Oh, that's right.
why he
JT pushed
remembers.
him off the roof.
He was on the ground.
I'm just kidding. Anyways,
on a ladder, actually.
Yeah.
I was on
Anyways,
a ladder and watched him.
and he broke his
Everything.
ankle.
Slow motion.
Anyways, that was really rough. That same week, I went to the hospital and had an ectopic pregnancy, and it was on a Saturday, which apparently hospitals charge you more because it's a week.
Right.
And
Weekend.
It was an emergency.
yeah, obviously it was an emergency.
On a weekend, yes.
On a weekend. And I remember a couple months later, we got a bill in the mail for
$24,000.
Thank you, $24,000, which is, to me, was like, yikes, that's like a brand new car. And I remember Pete and I talking. He's like, "It's okay. We'll figure something out. We're gonna make it work." I remember calling to figure out things as far as the hospital goes, calling them to see if they had any
Payment
type
plans
of
and
programs, payment plans. And God blessed us. A couple months later, we found out that our bill was paid entirely, and it made me look back and think about the situation mom and dad had when they were younger. I'm like,
Well, God does it for you
theirs
too.
were groceries, but
A lot of
this is
groceries.
what, I mean, it's a lot of groceries. This
Oh,
is
you're
what
better
God
than
did for us.
I think there's numerous stories that actually you and Pete have of God providing in neat ways, and I don't believe you can ever make a mistake serving the Lord if your mind is set properly and it's not on money. The blessings are new. I mean, I think financially, God has blessed us more. In the world's eyes, we now have a house, and I have a truck, and you have a car, and the world can see that God has been good to us. Whereas when we were younger, God was just as good, only the world couldn't quite see it, and
Right.
nobody else could, but we knew. And our spirit is the same now as it was then. If God wants us to have something, fine. If he doesn't, we're good.
Right.
We're good. It doesn't
I
matter.
think the biggest thing it taught probably us kids was trusting in God, just leaving it up to Him, not panicking, having a balanced mind, all of those things,
Having faith.
that you should be teaching your children.
I was going to say, I think at that time when that happened, you and Pete had discussed it, and Pete said, we're just going to trust the Lord. And you didn't even tell the family.
No,
I don't think.
we did.
No, I didn't.
It wasn't until
it was
Thanksgiving.
taken care of.
Yeah.
And I just remember you guys sharing that with us and how excited you were and relieved, but we didn't even have to feel all that pressure that you guys had for however many months it was. But yet I look back and I go, I didn't even know. I had no idea that's a lot of stress, that much money being on you. And you just were like, I remember you telling me it was really hard because it was probably the first time Pete said no. Don't tell your family, and he asked you to trust him and also trust the Lord. And you told me later, you were just like, you really appreciated that because it helped your faith. It grew your faith, and that the Lord is looking out for you and
Right.
leading through your husband.
And it wasn't like we're going to Dad saying, we need this
help.
money. No.
Yeah.
And we didn't want him to feel that way either. I think that was more at Pete's end.
I already knew, though. I already knew
it's gonna-
because I know the church doesn't. You guys don't think I know things, but the church has. We have no insurance. We have no insurance.
Yes, yeah.
And I remember discussing it. I think just casually with Pete, and I said, "Don't worry about things. Just you're going to get bills." The church covered our church insurance covered your fall off the building, right?
Yes.
And I knew that. I said, but as far as we always gave you guys instructions that when it comes to the having children or whatever, or being in the hospital, go to the hospital and work with them. That was one of the things that I probably learned from Mom, is we had hospital bills or doctor's bills that come up. If you just don't pay it and you just throw it on the desk, it's going to go to court, it's going to go to collections, you're going to have your wages garnished. But if you call the hospital and talk to them, tell them what your situation is, there's programs.
Let them help walk you through
There's
it.
always programs, and I've said this before. I'm not a big proponent of the welfare system today, but for young people that are just getting going, that's what it's there for, is to help you get going. Just don't make it something you become addicted to and become lazy and utilize all the time. So, no questions. This is going to be amazing. Nobody's asking any questions, so no hard questions.
No, I was thinking about the fact that we were talking about credit cards, and we all can say, what did Pastor always tell each of you about when you have a credit card, what to spend,
What to use it
what to
for.
use it for. That's what I'm trying to say. Sorry.
He always said to use it for gas, and you pay it off immediately
Every month.
every month. That was the first thing you used it for
But
gas.
you don't use it for anything else. That
No,
way,
you didn't go to the store with it.
no, right. It doesn't get out of hand.
Yep.
And we always tell them, don't go window shopping either.
Yeah.
And window shopping's gone from going into the big malls
Oh,
To
going
going
online,
to internet,
going to
online.
Amazon.
And that's that's window shopping. That's the worst thing, especially with credit card and internet.
Oh, so bad.
It's so easy for nobody to know what you're doing until you get the product, and then you boast about it, and people know they're sitting in there in their head going, "And how do you paying for that?"
Yeah.
But don't. Everybody's like, buy now, pay later. Don't do that.
No.
You can buy now, but you have to pay now.
Yeah.
And it's always better to
Yeah,
do.
never do rent to own, anything like that.
Oh,
That
rent
is
to own's
ridiculous.
sickening.
Yeah.
So Asher, no, we don't know Pastor Coleman. We have heard of Levon Drive Baptist Church in Garland, Texas.
I know
though.
what he looks like from pictures, but yes, we don't know him personally.
The great Levon Drive Baptist Church.
I've never even heard of it. I went to school in Texas.
It was
I
a
never
church
even
of
heard
the
of
house
it.
pastor, wasn't
No.
it? No? Oh. Okay.
I don't think we've heard of Levon Baptist Church.
Maybe it's a different one.
It's a different one.
Of course, it could have changed through the years. We don't
Maybe.
know. I'd be saying
Oh,
that.
you did say Garland, Texas.
Yeah.
There's a different church in Garland.
It might have been the same one and
Yeah, I
has
don't
just
know.
changed. Yeah. Who knows?
We're a bit different, Asher. We're really peculiar people. So, all right. Well, I guess with no questions, we will throw it over to Will, and he can sign us off.
Okay. Thank you so much for Got it. Thank you so much for joining us for this week's episode of The Brook. We hope that you'll join us again next week in the same time and in the same place for another fun-filled show. Pastor David, Peter, Mrs. Reeves, Jewel, Hope, Christy, JT, thank you for being a part of the episode today. You can find this episode next week, sometime this week, on YouTube and anywhere that podcasts can be listened to. And we want to thank you for tuning in and wish you a good night. We're going to finish off with this song, He's Still on the Throne, the Tharp Brothers. We'll see you all next week.